Welcome to today's recorded learning session, Virtual Collaboration for Employees here at NAVFAC. Today's narrators will be Miss Alexis Claire Rorick and myself, Dr. Jeffrey Weaver. Let's cover your agenda for today. There's going to be three main parts: the opening, collaboration and virtual work, and closing. In the opening section, we're going to talk about some basic functionality for how to operate in MS Teams, as well as cover the objectives for this virtual collaboration session. In the collaboration and virtual work section, we're going to cover some ideas and understandings around colleagues, meetings, and leaders. And then finally, in the closing section, we're going to talk about some key takeaways, and we're going to help you understand how virtual collaboration ties into the 70-20-10 adult learning model. And we're going to make sure that you understand the cheat sheet that we provided as well. During the advertisement of this session, there were several links to either videos, articles, and things like that. We need to make sure that you understand the following statement. The United States government does not endorse any links provided, but recognize that they may be of use. Now let's start covering MS Teams. Before I get started, I want to bring your attention to the icon in the top left-hand corner. The pencil and pad indicates that there is a corresponding page to the workbook to this slide. So as you move forward throughout this learning session, you'll find that this icon is used on several slides. It's the opportunity for you to write down any ideas, thoughts, or suggestions that you would like to share or remember. So let's go over MS Teams. Let's talk about the basic understanding. This is a toolbar that most people have when you operate in MS Teams. And there are a variety of icons on here, and I'm not going to cover them all, but I wanted to point out some key information for you. The first icon is a camera. That camera can either be turned off or turned on. What you see now is the camera is turned off. If you would like to turn your camera on, you simply need to click on that, and then you'll be able to display yourself as you're in your meetings. The next icon is the microphone. That's for you to turn on or turn off your mute. If you see that there is no line through it, that means your microphone is open. So if you're in a meeting, I recommend that you turn your microphone off so that you don't have any extraneous background noise in the middle. I'm going to skip over the three little dots, and I'm going to move over into the hand. That hand is an indication for you. If you'd like to raise your hand and let people know that you have a question or you'd like to make a comment, you simply click this button and it will notify all of the members of the meeting that you have an idea and want to say something. You also have the ability of turning that off. When you're finished making your statement or asking your question, you simply touch it again and you have the ability of lowering your hand or turning it off. The next icon is like the message bubble. That's to open the chat box, and we'll go through that in just a moment. And the next icon, you see two little people. That means you can see the participants that are participating in your current meeting. Now, let's go back to the three little dots. When you click those three little dots, you'll have another pop-up window that pops up. So when you look at the image in the bottom left-hand corner, I clicked those three dots, and this is the additional menu bar that pops up. Something that I'd like to point out is you have the ability of turning off or turning on live captions. So you have the ability of seeing everything that's being said down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen as they're being stated throughout any type of meeting. And then if we move back over into the chat box, when you click on that button, you will see that the chat box opens on the right-hand side of your screen, and it will always remain there until you turn it off. You'll be able to see information and comments that are posted by the facilitator or other members of the meeting, session, learning session, whatever the case may be for what you're in, you'll be able to see those comments. One special point of note, there are no private comments in Microsoft Teams. So if you type something in the chat box, everybody in that session will be able to see that information and use it directly. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rorick, and she's going to cover the objectives for today's learning session.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Our objective today will be to contribute to the resilience of the NAVFAC workforce by improving collaboration in a virtual work environment through intentional, specific, and creative engagements with colleagues and leaders. By the end of this learning session, participants will be able to identify best practices for virtual collaboration, understand tools available to the workforce in a virtual environment, and build skills for effective virtual collaboration following the 70-20-10 model. And what is the outcome if we reach this objective? It's so that you can be a better communicator and collaborator, and so that you can work with your colleagues to accomplish today's task that builds to the success of NAVFAC. Before we go any further, I want to take a minute to pause and zoom out a little bit and think about why are we collaborating virtually? In 1 hour, you're going to be better equipped to deliver naval power. That is our commitment to you for this learning session on virtual collaboration. Why? Because the year 2020 has brought change to our lives, but not to our mission. We must pursue all methods available to continue to improve our ability to contribute to the mission of NAVFAC. We did not ask for our current predicament, but we have no hesitation to rise to it and above it. We have no hesitation to become more resilient, a smarter workforce, stronger communicators, and better collaborators. For example, we must still build the runways, perform virtual site visits, extend the lifespan of Navy fuel tanks, and develop the training complexes all necessary to ensure overwhelming fleet and Marine Corps lethality. 2 recent NAVFAC examples of adaptability come to mind that I want to share with you. So the first is at the Naval Air Station Meridian in Mississippi. The Public Works Department is continuing to support the installation by splitting its workforce into 2 teams. They are alternating access and sanitizing between rotations. This adaptation has increased productivity and reduced overtime costs. Furthermore, the Facilities, Engineering, and Acquisition Division has continued work via virtual pre-construction conferences and contract negotiations. A second example is at NAVFAC Pacific. They partnered with the Naval Mobile Construction Battalion 5 Seabees to conduct virtual site visits on Tinian, which had been shut down to incoming traffic. The up-to-date video and imagery of the site, the haul route, and the seaport acquired by the Seabees enabled NAVFAC to continue the project without delay and obtain quality bids from contractors who had access to accurate conditions of the site. Through flexibility, innovations both big and small in the way we work, and the patience and courage to adapt, we will accomplish the mission despite the setbacks presented before us. We will carry the lessons we learned today forward so that we may be a workforce that continues to deliver high performance.
Thanks, Alexis. This is one of the videos we asked you to look at prior to listening to this recorded session. If you haven't had the opportunity, that's okay. We do recommend that you go back and listen to it though. But there are 4 key points that the author wants you to take away from watching this video. The first one is clarity and consistency. Make sure that the team has agreed upon norms or ground rules on how you're going to operate. 2, standardized use of communications. Are you going to use MS Teams? Are you going to use phone? Are you going to use email? Just make sure that everybody understands how you're expected to communicate. 3, don't bombard with multiple communication requests, such as text, emails, chat requests, and then followed up by phone calls. Give your team member the opportunity to respond to your first request for communication or collaboration, and then they will probably let you know when they're available. Think of it in terms like this. If we were in the physical space and you got up from your desk 4 times to go see if somebody was sitting at their desk and they're sitting there and they didn't respond to you, it could be because they're working on something. They could have their heads down on a last-minute project, or they could be strategizing on what it is that they need to do. Give them the opportunity to respond to your initial communication request and then go forward from there. And then finally, 4, celebrate and socialize remotely. Even though how we communicate changed, doesn't mean that we have to stop communicating. You have the ability to do conference calls via video. Change how you operate and give more people the opportunity to see folks consistently. You can even have a virtual pizza party just to celebrate. And again, I highly recommend that you go and listen to this video. As you can see by the screen, there is a good list of pros and cons associated with virtual work. We won't cover them all, however, I did want to highlight 1 or 2 from each column. If we look at greater productivity, if you eliminate the time that we spend commuting to and from work, it allows us to add that time back into our workday to increase our productivity levels. But what it also gives us is greater flexibility to accomplish the things that we need to do for work, but it also gives us an opportunity to flex so that we can do the things that we need to do maybe at home, i.e., one of the cons, competing demands at home. It could be family, pets, or any other type of distraction. If we use the greater flexibility that we've gained from the pro side To eliminate the con, we can see a win-win situation with that. And then one of the other cons I want to just highlight is less contact with leadership. Because we don't have the ability for happenstance meetings, we have to be very deliberate in how we communicate with leadership, just as they're deliberate in how they communicate with us. Research has shown us that a list of pros and cons are common in many organizations. This list is a general understanding of those communally listed. Based on how NAVFAC views virtual work, are there pros and cons that are missing that should be added? At this time, write your thoughts and ideas in your workbook. Pause the recording, and then you can resume when you are ready. Now that you have your thoughts and ideas, we ask that you share those ideas with Headquarters BD17. You will find their email address at the very last page of this presentation to submit your thoughts and ideas. Based off of everything that we've said thus far in this session, you're probably asking yourself, what is collaboration? Well, simply put, collaboration is the act of working with others to produce or create something. You could say collaboration is the process of two or more people or even organizations working together to complete a task or accomplish or achieve a goal. While collaboration isn't a single event, it's about exploring and generating new ideas in new ways and being consistent in the processing to reach those goals or objectives. Now that you have a better understanding of what collaboration is and why we need to do it, let's discuss some of the similarities and differences of how that happens in two different environments. As you can see on the slide, we're going to focus on two areas, physical versus virtual workspaces. There are two different distinctions in these realms. Let's take communication as an example. In the physical space, we could use in-person communications. While in the virtual space, we can use technology or technology-driven communication, whether it's with a computer, a tablet, or simply a cell phone. However, when it comes down to the basic bare bones of communication, it still requires what? Two-way communication to be successful in the collaboration process. There are a few additional points I would like to make in regards to how we can become better at collaboration. As you can see in the physical space, we can have spontaneous or happenstance meetings and interactions, while in the virtual space, we must be more deliberate in our effort to reach out to people and let them know your thoughts, ideas, suggestions, and expectations. Because when we don't know those things, we can't see you, we can't get the nonverbal cues, it's hard for anybody to make an understanding of what it is that you do or do not understand when communication happens. Now we've come to a point in our session that we'd like you to take a few moments and reflect. After I read the question on the screen, I will ask that you pause the recording so that you can respond to the question in your workbook, and then you can resume when you are ready. Question: when you get better at virtual collaboration, how will it help you at work, in your community, in your command, at NAVFAC, and even for the Navy? At this time, please pause the playback and you can resume when you are ready. Now I will pass it over to Alexis to discuss trust.
Thank you, Jeffrey. We're now moving into our next section on collaborating with colleagues. In this section, we're going to talk first about two types of trust, and then second, how to develop those types of trust in a virtual environment. So first, we're going to watch a video on trust and colleagues in virtual engagements.
Do you know there is more than one kind of trust? Do you know how to build trust? Why is trust so important in working relationships, especially virtual engagements? Answers to these questions and others will be included in this video to highlight a variety of different trusts and how to build them both in person and virtually. Two types of trust we will discuss today are interpersonal and task-based trust. Trust between colleagues is essential for working teams. However, it evolves differently in virtual teams compared to that of in-person teams. In a typical environment, colleagues build relationships and trust through social interactions and collaborative work assignments. This is called interpersonal trust. also known as benevolent trust. Now you're probably asking yourself, how do I do that in a virtual environment? And the answer is, transforming to a virtual workspace isn't difficult, just different, and can be accomplished through virtual coffee chats, lunches, happy hours, and other social activities. These same events happen in the typical work environment, but they are spontaneous in many instances. With virtual teams, we have to be more deliberate with these efforts and activities. When your calendar is updated and shared with the team, it allows people to reach out when they know you have available time on your schedule, which helps eliminate the multiple phone calls or multiple requests for video chats when you're in a meeting, provided it's on your calendar. With COVID-19 constantly evolving, we must make changes to our scheduling and communicating habits in order to grow and maintain trust in relationships with these colleagues. It won't happen overnight, but with consistent effort it will grow nonetheless. In a virtual setting, teams and colleagues can build trust through reliability, consistency, and responsiveness. This is also called task-based trust. Task-based trust develops every day as you work alongside your colleagues. Every time you deliver on your commitments, you build more trust. With these foundational trust in place, we as individuals can make connections and be consistent with our working relationships to bring out the best of the team. Having these trusts in place allows for the team to grow and expand our collective abilities in the production of our work efforts. This type of trust can be transformative, which creates a resilient and confident team as we continue to meet the mission of the Navy. As we are experiencing COVID-19 together, we can make it through this pandemic and still achieve great work meeting the NAVFAC mission by aligning our efforts to the 3 lines of effort: enabling warfighter lethality, maximizing naval shore readiness, and strengthening our SysCom team. We can take advantage of this COVID-19 situation and build our communication strengths through talking about our corona-related challenges, experiences, and triumphs with each other, and supporting our team by remaining accountable and tough through these challenging times. Honest, open, and frequent communication is the key to our success, which is guided by our core attributes of integrity and initiative. As we go through our workday, these guiding principles are how we measure the NAVFAC success story. When the trust is in place, it allows members of the team to open their lives and share experiences both professionally and personally. By encouraging interpersonal trust, we will be able to transgress our challenges with the virtual environment just as we achieve our mission of being the trusted facilities and expeditionary experts for the Navy in our in-person environment. To build better trusting relationships in the interpersonal realm, talk about non-work related things with your colleagues. Schedule or spontaneously initiate short 5-minute social calls or virtual lunches to touch base about topics apart from work. Organize virtual trivia, happy hour, or other social activities to have fun with your colleagues and build better working relationships. Remember, the key to this trust is effective communication. Communicating with predictability is the phrase that leads to ability or task-based trust. Provide updates, share status reports, or progress reports with the team on a regular basis via voice memos, emails, or virtual meetings. Like social engagements, schedule short meetings or lunches with colleagues to update them on the team's efforts. Hold brainstorming sessions or conduct polls to find out what the team is thinking. Also, another way to build trust is allowing for other members of the team to lead efforts, meetings, or gatherings. By empowering team members, it shows great levels of trust and builds the confidence of the team's collective strengths. While COVID-19 has changed the way the Navy operates, it has not changed the quality of NAVFAC business as we continue to steer forward and accelerate our mission.
I hope you enjoyed watching that video. Now that we have a better understanding of interpersonal and task-based trust, we're going to look at ways to develop these 2 types of trust. So imagine social engagement with colleagues happens naturally in a physical work environment, and it makes working together not only more enjoyable, but actually more productive. And in a physical working environment, information gets passed in both those formal and informal channels. The formal channels with your colleagues and managers will still exist through meetings, MS Teams, all those communications. However, the informal channels, such as lunch together or quick breaks in the office kitchen or passing each other in the hallway, those disappear in a virtual environment. And so in a virtual environment, We have to create these moments intentionally. These moments of engagement must be things that we put on our calendar or reach out to our colleagues to start. So I want you to pause the video and brainstorm a few ideas on how to develop social or interpersonal trust. You can see that on the screen now. That's the column on the left. Maybe this is by yourself or with a colleague, and then come back to the video. And we'll go through ways to develop interpersonal trust when you come back. Thank you for taking the time to brainstorm a few ideas. Let's take a look at my list on the screen and see which of these match up with your list. So you can schedule or spontaneously initiate short phone calls. Those could be 5 minutes or 15 minutes in length. And those are social. You want to be able to talk to your colleagues about things outside of that work setting. And you could have that over lunch. You could set up a virtual lunch with your colleagues. In both of these settings, you want to talk about things like family or friends or what you did on the weekend, topics apart from work. You can also have fun activities such as virtual trivia, maybe it's a pizza hour or a happy hour. These are all different ways that you can start to develop that interpersonal trust. So I'm asking, which one of these do you want to implement this week? Next, we'll move over to that column on the right side that says work. We're going to do the same thing again. You're going to pause the video, brainstorm a few ideas on how to develop work or task-based trust with your colleagues, and then come back to the video and we'll compare lists. I want to go through the different ideas on what we can do to build task-based trust. Hi again, thanks for taking the time to brainstorm ideas on how to build task-based trust. Let's look at this list and see how it compares to the one you made. So things we could do are share status reports and progress regularly. We could schedule short meetings or lunches with colleagues in different functions or different departments than us to update each other on our work. We could also hold brainstorming sessions on big blue sky ideas. What's a blue sky idea? That's something that's kind of out there or hasn't been tried yet or maybe difficult to implement, but let's just sit down, talk through it, and brainstorm the possibilities. You can also use voice memos, emails, or meetings to communicate, and here the emphasis should be on consistency and reliability. So get back to someone within 24 hours, make sure that you are communicating reliably and consistency with your colleagues. And that touches on that last line. So reliably answer communications. All of these things are going to help build trust based on your ability to work together, deliver on the things that you promise, and produce a quality product. So here is a list of best practices and expectations that apply both to those social and work interactions with colleagues. So these are also included in your workbook, but I want to highlight 3 of these. First, I want you to give the benefit of a doubt. When a colleague emails us and we're quick to read their message, sometimes we assign tone right away. And that tone may or may not be the tone they intended. As a collaborative employee, we should give them the benefit of the doubt. When you read that email, assume good intention. Second, communicate appreciation for your colleagues' work. If a peer just finished a big project, shoot them an email saying, "Nicely done." Praise and support does not only have to come from leaders or supervisors. As colleagues, we can appreciate the work of those we are collaborating with. Third, and finally, ask others how they prefer to communicate. This helps keep those lines of communication open. It also optimizes in efficiency and productivity. So if I know my colleague likes text, then I will rely on text to get in touch with them. I have another colleague that prefers MS Teams. That's fine. I'll use that to get a hold of them. This helps maximize our productivity. We are now going to apply what we learned about regarding interpersonal and task-based trust to a case study. So I will read the case study to you. This is also included in your workbook. I want you to reflect on the source of the issues occurring and think about a few possible solutions. What should Krista and Lawrence both do to better collaborate virtually? So as you're listening and afterwards, you're going to pause the video and you're going to write your thoughts in your workbook or on a piece of paper. And then when we come back together, we'll talk about what some of those best practices or solutions or recommendations that we can give both Krista and Lawrence. So, Krista works in LAN. She has been trying to get a hold of her colleague Lawrence, who works in PAC, on MS Teams chat all morning, but he is not responding. She's thinking about calling, video calling, maybe texting or emailing to get feedback on a contract for a topographical survey before sharing it with her supervisor. Later that day, Krista finally gets a hold of Lawrence on a phone call, but she's hearing his kids in the background throughout the whole call. While Krista does get the feedback on the contract that she needs, she's left with an uncomfortable feeling of having really bothered Lawrence. So now I want you to pause the video and think about what is happening in the situation, what Krista and Lawrence both should do to be better virtual collaborators. And you'll have 3 minutes to work on this, and then come back to the video and we'll talk about your solutions. So let's look at the solutions you came up with and compare them to the list of solutions I had. Now remember, we're thinking about what both Krista and Lawrence can do to better collaborate virtually. So one, they can communicate their availability. So Lawrence should tell Krista when he's available, and vice versa, Krista should share this with Lawrence. Second, they can be easily available during working hours, and this really helps when you keep your calendar up to date. So if Lawrence had said his morning was blocked off and Krista wouldn't be able to get a hold of him, then she would be able to look at his calendar and see that. Next, we should show understanding and compassion for the situation that Lawrence is in. The current year has brought a lot of challenges, and Lawrence looks like he is managing both his family as well as his work, and that can be very difficult. So Krista should provide some compassion and understanding for the situation he is in. Next, we should give advance notice of our request for feedback, and with time to spare. That way people can fit it into their calendars, they can prioritize or reprioritize as needed. Next, we really want to know those preferred modes of communication. We saw in the beginning, Krista was not sure how to reach out to Lawrence, but if she knew, actually, he's really responsive on MS Teams, I'll go there, then she would be able to get a hold of him more easily and not have to worry about bothering him. Last, she should check in on the colleagues and the work that we're doing in and outside of work. So if Krista knew that Lawrence was having a lot of family responsibilities, she would be able to show a little bit more compassion, a little bit more flexibility.
Thank you, Alexis, for sharing that interesting case study and the suggestions that might help Krista and Lawrence. As you will notice in the upper left-hand corner, the icon for the workbook, the corresponding page is page 12. As we transition into the meeting section, we wanted to take a moment and just think about some ideas that would be useful for others when it comes to being productive and efficient in virtual meetings. After I read the question, we will ask you to pause the playback and respond to the question in your workbook. And the question is, what can you do to make virtual meetings more productive and efficient? We'd now like you to pause the playback and capture your thoughts in your workbook, then resume when you are ready. Now that you've had the time to reflect, let's go over some of the things that can be done before, during, and after meetings to make them more productive and efficient. Over the next 3 slides, you're going to find space in your workbook to write down your thoughts and ideas on 3 phases that we're going to cover: before, during, and after. You will find these slides and pages in your workbook starting on page 12. You will have as much time as you need to capture your thoughts and ideas in your workbook for each phase, and then I'll provide you 1 or 2 of the best practices from the listing. This is slide 1 of 3, and the question is, what can you do before virtual meetings to make them more productive and efficient? Pause the playback and you can resume when you are ready. Welcome back. The first best practices is beverages. Make sure that you have everything available to you at arm's length so you don't have to get up during the meeting to get that. The second thing is make sure that you use the time before a meeting to take all bathroom breaks that are needed. The next one is make sure that you have all the documents related to the meeting open and have all of your technical equipment, whether that be headphones, camera, or anything that you use to take notes, available and charged. This is slide 2 of 3, and the question is, what can you do during virtual meetings to make them more productive and efficient? Pause the playback and you can resume when you are ready. Welcome back. The first one on the list is be physically and mentally present during meetings. We spend a lot of times in meetings lately. Make sure that you are physically and mentally present in the meeting that you're attending. Don't think about the meeting that you just left, and don't think about the meeting you have to go to next. Pay attention to what's in front of you, and that way you can make sure that you are effective and efficient. Make sure that you leave the meeting with a clear understanding of your responsibilities, next steps, and timelines for what you have to do. If you're unsure, pause and ask and make sure that you know before the meeting ends. And this is slide 3 of 3. And the question is, what can you do after virtual meetings to make them more productive and efficient? Pause the playback and you can resume when you are ready. Welcome back. So one of the best practices is make sure that you share notes that you have taken during the meeting with the note taker. That way they can share all of the notes with everybody that attended the meeting. Make sure that you complete your list of responsibilities and tasks within the timeline that was expected that you got during the meeting. And then seek any additional information on meeting topics to expand your knowledge base. Now I will pass it back to Alexis to discuss working with leaders.
Thank you, Jeffrey. So now we're going to move to our final section, collaboration with leaders. Collaboration does not just happen with peers, but with your leaders too. So in order to demonstrate readiness and resilience, we need to take steps to strengthen our relationship with our leaders. So your leaders have less of a lens into your work now that you're not in the same location. And trust is essential in this relationship. A virtual working environment requires extra communication and intentional effort on every individual's part. So if you're having a challenge with the work you're doing or a colleague or if something's come up, you're going to have to reach out to your supervisor or leader to talk to them about that. They're not going to know unless you share it with them because you lose a lot of that insight when you're no longer in the same physical space. I now have a brainstorming activity for you to do when thinking about collaboration with leaders. I've got 2 columns here, and I want you to get your workbook out or grab that pen and paper and answer these questions. What am I, as an employee, doing to make sure that my relationship with my leaders is efficient and effective? So on the left, you'll see what am I doing? And on the right, you'll see what can I expect from my leader? And after you fill out these tables, I want you to have a conversation with your leader about how it's going. Things you can keep doing that are going well, and things that you should course correct.
Thank you, Ramona. Now you're probably asking yourself, how does the 70-20-10 model fit into virtual collaboration? I'm happy that you're asking that question. Let's discuss how it can be linked together. Just as a recap to ensure that we all understand and know the model, let me explain the parts of the model first. So the picture that you see in front of us, there are 3 parts, 10%, 20%, and 70%. 10% being formal, via classroom, workshops, or even recorded learning sessions such as this. You actually take that, you're registered for it, and you complete it. 20% or social, that can be done via mentoring, coaching, or peer-to-peer ideas. That's something that you can do and you learn from that 10% and then you share that with others, whether they be members of your team or members of your command. And then 70%, experiential, on-the-job training. That can be direct assignments, stretch assignments, or it can even be details and rotations. But what you're doing is you're actually putting your hands on, or you're doing the tasks of whatever it is that you're trying to learn, so that you have that first-hand experience. Now that we discussed the actual model, let me show it how it can be linked to virtual collaboration. 10% or formal. Attending a learning session. As I said before, just as this very course itself, even recorded sessions can be seen as formal. 20% or social. For those that were unable to attend the session, you can create group meetings, maybe a brown bag lunch, and share the aspects of the learning session with others that were unable to attend, and they can be members of your team or members of your command. Another way you can use social would be to review the recorded learning session as a small group. Then you can pause the playback and have short group discussions around the elements of the session. And then finally, 70% or experiential, you can invite employees that you're mentoring or if they're shadowing you as a leader to a variety of virtual meetings in an observation mode only to learn how to lead virtual meetings and deal with the challenges of those interactions firsthand as you resolve the challenges during the meetings directly. Another way that you could use experiential would be to take this recorded learning session together with a mentee, and you can oversee or guide them creating an actual virtual meeting or workshop for the team. We wanted to take a moment and give you a tool. This tool can be found on pages 14 and 15 in your workbook. I know it's a bit wordy, but we wanted to ensure that you could share it with others in greater detail for those that were unable to attend the learning session, with clear examples that can be accomplished using the 70-20-10 model. Within each column, you will find 5 examples of activities that can be accomplished in each category, 70, 20, or 10. You will see that in the 10 column, there are links to videos and articles to support your learning as well as the learning of others. As a reminder, the United States government does not endorse any links provided, but recognizes that they may be of use. At this time, we ask that you take a few seconds to write your ideas and thoughts that will help you use this page to support your workforce development, but also the workforce development of others. Please pause the playback and you can resume when you are ready. The Career Compass Resource Center, or the CCRC. We hope that many of you have taken the opportunity to explore the various pages and information located on the CCRC. If you haven't, please find the link at the bottom of the page and check it out. There you will find a variety of resources, tools, and information to support your workforce development here at NAVFAC. In fact, if you registered for this course through the Total Force Development page, the link used for this recorded session is located on the CCRC. We hope that you use and visit the CCRC pages frequently and explore the content shared around the 20 non-technical competencies specifically developed for NAVFAC communities. On page 16 in your workbook, you will find our final reflection. And I leave you with these 2 questions, and you can share your responses with your mentor, colleagues, co-workers, or supervisor as you would like. Question 1. What is the number 1 takeaway you learned today? Question 2. What tips will translate and work well for you and your colleagues today, and why? Please pause the playback and you can resume when you are ready. In order to receive credit for completing this course, please follow the instructions below. Email the address below and make sure you include all of the following information. Make sure that you include the course name and the course completion code in your email to receive credit. If for some reason you don't include these 2 items, it will not be possible to provide credit within NAVFAC. Thank you for viewing this recorded version of Virtual Collaboration Employee Course. If you have any questions, please contact Headquarters BD17 at NAVFAC HQ Total Force Development at navy.mil for assistance.